Welcome to Education Forum. I'm Herman Badillo, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the City University. The improvement of education affects all New Yorkers. This program will focus on the key educational issues and challenges before us all. My guest today is Ninfa Segarra, who is the Vice President for Intercampus Collaboration at the City University, but who was just recently elected President of the Board of Education of the City of New York. She is a graduate of NYU, where she received her Bachelor of Arts degree, and a graduate of New York Law School, where she received her Juris Doctor. She was first appointed to the Board of Education by Mayor Giuliani as a member of the Board of Education, and was just reappointed and elected President of the Board. But prior to that, prior to coming to us at the City University, she was Deputy Mayor for Education and Human Services. And I could go on, but the idea is we want to talk about what you are doing now, especially at the Board of Education. I think I should say congratulations, but nobody can be sure because there's always so much problem at the board. You were elected with 4 votes, yes. And now there's talk about maybe the Manhattan representative being asked to resign, and the Queens representative being asked to resign. What's going on at the board now?
Well, it's unfortunate because it's the usual problems of the politics affecting the board, which is why I emphasize that I think the board should be eliminated, because we're spending now too much time on what really are sidebar issues. The important issues, as you know, are the issues of whether or not our children are performing well, whether or not they're receiving a fair and wonderful and appropriate education, and whether or not they really have the opportunities that they deserve in order to become productive citizens of New York City. And I don't think that's occurring yet. And
then also there are some very real issues that are coming up right away.
Oh,
for example,
absolutely.
The immediate issue is the summer school program, right?
Yeah.
Last year, there were supposed to be 300 and some thousand students left behind, and they were supposed to participate on the summer program, and many didn't. And some who did and didn't pass were promoted anyway.
Yeah.
What's going to happen this year?
Well, one is that the summer program will continue this year, and the mayor has actually added funds to expand it so that we can include not just youngsters that are mandated to attend, but also youngsters that can use the opportunity to really help develop their skills.
And how many students do you figure will have to
Well,
participate?
we're not sure of the number yet, but a critical piece about last summer is the high school students. Because what we found is that the greatest dropout, or the greatest number of students not attending or opting not to attend, were high school students, which is one of the reasons that one of my priorities is to look at high school reform. As you know, CUNY and the Board of Ed has started the College Now program that you proposed, which is a relationship between the two institutions on a high school level to help
The
youngsters.
reason for that, for the benefit of the viewers, is that we have had, over the years, a huge percentage of students who receive high school diplomas from the public schools in New York City, and when we test them for reading, writing, and arithmetic, we find that they are not ready for college work.
That's right.
That they, even though they have a high school diploma, they may be reading at the 6th to 9th grade level.
And sometimes worse.
And sometimes worse. And so the College Now program is intended to have our professors at CUNY work with the individual high schools to help the students when they start in the 9th grade, to make sure that they don't need as much remediation and that they get a real high school diploma. And one of the things we did last year was to extend the program to the 9th grade because of what you said, that we find that the biggest problem is the students dropping out in the 9th and 10th grade.
Yeah, that relationship between the later years of middle school and that first year of high school is critical. And what we found through the summer program, another indication that we have a serious problem, is youngsters who needed remediation, who needed assistance, didn't come to summer school and found other ways of either opting out of summer school or just waiting to see if during the course of the year they could make up the effort, because they've been given a bad message. The message is that as long as you want to stay in high school, you can. And the negative of that is that it doesn't help youngsters really work at age-appropriate work or relationships, social relationships in the classroom.
Okay, now last year, the problem was that a very huge percentage of the students didn't go to summer school, and the parents said that they hadn't known about it. What is being done this year to see to a higher percentage?
The Chancellor has mandated a number of discussions during the course of the school year instead of waiting till the end. He's more closely monitoring to make sure that superintendents are making principals accountable for those discussions during the school year. He's emphasized to parents, because parents have a responsibility here, that they need to either on the parent-teacher day or in other opportunities come in and discuss their children's progress with the school. And what he's trying to do is just push communication between parents and the schools. Part of the challenge we face is that we have parents with a multitude of languages, and we need to make the settings more comfortable for them so that they feel they can come into the schools. So part of it is the communication with the parents. Then the other part is the parents themselves. Parents have to be responsible, and they have to take, when that door gets open, they have to step in with their child and say, okay, what is occurring with my child? I want to know how she or he is doing, and what can I do to make sure they're going to be okay.
Now, the second problem with the summer school program last year was that it was, as Chancellor Levy said, only a July program.
Right.
Is it going to be a real total summer program?
Well,
now?
that's the difficulty with that, is whether or not we can have a program that's worth extending in time, because part of it is you don't want to bring in youngsters to just do what they didn't succeed at during the course of the school year. So part of it is enhancing what we can make available. And one of the things that we pushed for last year with the Chancellor was the use of outside providers to assist the board, in particular during the summer. And this is one area where the issue of privatization was received in a much better way. And we have a number of companies that worked with the board last year, and we're trying to increase those this year, because when you add on outside resources to give you a new look at what you're doing, then you can create something that's different for the kids in the summer, so that they will then really benefit from it and be interested and learn in a different way, use a new approach with them, so that they can succeed the next school year.
Okay, now, assuming that we have the expanded and enlarged program, summer program this year, and students fail the test after that, will the students be left behind?
Yes, and one of the questions,
because that's the real test, and this is something that the parents and the students should know and be warned about, that last year there was forgiveness.
Yeah, no,
but this time, is it for real?
It's real, and we're going to watch that. Now, in our responsibility as a system, if we say that, is then again to create a different kind of setting for those youngsters. And the youngsters that are most at risk are the ones that have to repeat the 8th grade, because there you have to make sure that when you bring them back, you really create a different setting for them. This is the challenge of the school system. You have to design different things for different sets of youngsters.
Well, this is the test as far as I'm concerned, because as you know, I have been opposing social promotion all these years, which
you were ahead of the curve.
Yeah, under which everybody passes automatically. And the test, I've always said that you have to have help with the students, such as a summer program, and if they do their work, and then they can pass. But if they don't, then they should be left behind.
Right.
And this would be the first time that in the city of New York that will really happen.
Yeah,
so
and
it's a very important issue.
It's critical. It's an issue of credibility, and it's an issue really of, are we really responsible, and are we going to be responsive to the needs of youngsters? They come to the door ready to learn. We as an institution have to make sure that we're ready to teach, because that's really the challenge. Kids want to learn. Young people are curious, they're creative, they all have the ability to learn, some different ways, sometimes a different style, and their skills may be, some may be artistic, some might be athletic, some may be good writers, but they're all ready to learn. So I get so angry, and as a parent, really frustrated.
Well, you're one of the few people in the Board of Education who has children in the public schools,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that's why sometimes people think that I'm a little over the edge, and I am, and I like that, because it means that as a parent I recognize the urgency of today's crisis. This is not a crisis for tomorrow. It's not a crisis to be studied. I'm tired of hearing about studies and about waiting and having patience for reform. I have no patience, and I don't want to be patient, because we have a youngster that today is sitting in a classroom, and that little girl is just like Ninfa and has the ability and the skills for someday to be someone very special. I want her to have the opportunity I had. And that's an issue of today, not of tomorrow. That's an issue of moving the school system to reform itself as quickly as possible. And I like being impatient about it.
Now, you were born here, although your parents came
Yes.
from Puerto Rico, right?
Very proud to
Yeah.
be Puerto Rican.
But we have a huge number, the census has just revealed,
Yes.
we have a huge number of Hispanics especially that everyone is surprised about,
Yeah.
that have been coming into the city. Of course, you and I aren't surprised. We
No,
knew
not
about
at
it
all.
along. But this migration is going to continue, and
Yeah.
therefore we have to provide even more support services for
Oh,
that
absolutely.
population.
And we shouldn't be surprised by it. The numbers have been growing. My immigration to New York is one of our greatest assets. And as the mayor often says, one of the wonderful treasures we have in this city. And I think we can meet the challenge, because we are a country and a city that can absorb and have immigrants be part of our environment and be part of our community and be able to get the benefits. And these are people who have a wonderful desire to be part of the United States. They've chosen this country. They've chosen to come here, particularly to New York. And the school system should be responsive to them, and we can do this. This is not, and when people talk about this with some fear, as you and I, we know this is a good thing.
We all
This is a
came here. We
wonderful
all
thing.
came here to learn. Even those
Yeah.
like me couldn't speak the language
right.
at all, and it is precisely those of us who've gone through it who understand the desire of people to perform. We'll be back after these announcements.
Do you think you have the power to change the world?
I can shape the future, one child at a time.
I know I can make a difference in those children's lives, and I know I have.
Who knows where my influence may stop?
I teach.
I teach.
I teach.
Yes, they're teachers, but to the kids they reach, they're heroes.
I think I have the power to change the world. The influence is always there.
Do you have the power to wake up young minds, to be someone's hero, to change someone's life? Reach for that power. Teach. If you want to make an impact on our future, call 1-800-45-TEACH. Want to change the world?
I teach. I teach.
I teach.
I teach. I teach.
Be a teacher. Be a hero.
We're back today with Ninfa Segarra, who is the president of the Board of Education and also the vice president for inter-campus collaboration here at the City University. Let me make a pitch now for the City University.
Okay.
We talked already about the fact that you helped us to expand the College Now program last year.
Yes.
To begin working with the students in the 9th grade. I would like to expand the program even further back to begin to work with the students in the middle schools, because as you and I know, the biggest problem we have is that we have a huge dropout rate, primarily in the Black and Latino communities,
Yes.
in the 9th and 10th grade, so that if we begin to work with them in the 9th grade, it's almost too late. If we could begin to work with them in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, then that would give us really a chance to ensure that they would make up the remediation and be in a position when they get to the 9th and 10th grade not to drop out. Do you think we can do that, to have a joint
I think it's a great idea.
announcement?
And there's a few pieces to it that make it very exciting. One is that the middle grades, those middle school years, are the most difficult. Any teacher.
My wife teaches the 7th grade.
So,
you don't have to tell
so
me.
you know,
Yeah.
the dilemma of youngsters at that age. One day they're 5 years old, and one day they're 25 years old.
Exactly right.
They go back and forth. The exciting part is that for them in particular, role models are very important. Once you get to high school, youngsters have formed. And some ideas they already have set, but middle school years are when young people are really exploring. More than in any other age, I think those middle school years are the most sensitive. And to give them the exposure to campus life, to let them see and meet people that are not in their regular social circle, to have the opportunity to visit the campus and have some coursework there, I think would be great.
To have a future to look forward to, because
Absolutely.
they can begin to, perhaps
Plan
for the
ahead.
first time, and to think of the idea that they could
Yeah.
go to college.
Yeah, I think it would be a great idea. I know that my first experience in Aspira when I was a young person was in the 8th grade, and I was in Catholic school. But that's the first time that I encountered people from this organization, and they gave me the idea to think ahead, to think beyond high school. So the earlier we start, I think it would be an excellent opportunity for youngsters to have that relationship with campuses. It also starts to connect, because as you and I have always talked about, it's important to look at a pre-K through lifetime learning system. And the relationship that our institutions now have, that is the board and the Board of Education and the City University, is an extraordinary one. The more linkages we have, the stronger the relationships, the better, the more opportunities.
See, because I'm very upset about the high dropout rate in
Yeah.
the 9th and 10th grades. And believe me, we have the capacity at the City University, and we can expand to include even more students. And I would like to see every student in New York City go into college and get a college diploma, because today a high school diploma doesn't mean very much, and the failure to get a high school diploma is absolutely tragic.
And particular for Latinos.
Yes.
Not to the exclusion of other youngsters, but I recognize, and the statistics indicate, that Latino students, and I'm not talking about Latino students who don't speak English, English-dominant, New York City-born or United States-born Latinos in this city are failing extraordinary in our school system. We need to create programs, efforts, attention to that issue, and whatever opportunities we can use to link up our institutions, those are new avenues for those young people.
Now, the other thing that worries me is this. As you know, I've been a supporter of high standards at the City University, which existed when I graduated from City College, because I don't believe there should be a double standard. I think we, the new immigrants, can meet the same standards as everybody else. And I've been very happy to know that the Board of Regents and the Commissioner of Education, Mills, has supported strong standards. But I hear rumblings that the Chancellor may not be too happy with the high standards, and that there may be a movement to lower those standards for high school graduates.
And in high school, well, high school,
about that?
I think the standards it's very important that we retain them. Because I go back to my statement about youngsters. Youngsters come to the door ready. It is our responsibility to make sure that we create the opportunities for those youngsters to learn. And the way to create those opportunities is to have a set of standards that everyone knows that have to be met.
And
by
those
both
standards are going to be Regents Diploma.
Regents Diploma. And you and I both met those standards. And we met them against all odds. And there is no reason why youngsters now cannot meet those standards. The only reason for them to fail is that we fail them, is that we do not provide the opportunities for them. If we don't do high school reform, youngsters will have difficulty meeting the standards. But that's a responsibility of the Board of Ed. It's not a failure of youngsters, and it's certainly not a criticism of standards. Standards are important. They should be there. There should be an objective for us to meet, and they're not impossible. They're very, very possible.
Okay, now the other problem is the failure of the Edison schools' attempt to take over 5 public schools. Now there are about 85 or 90 schools which have been declared under Regents review because the whole school, not just the students, have been failing for many years. What is going to be done? after that failure to deal with the problems of those schools?
This is the saddest story of the board, and I call it sad because it really is, I get offended about the way parents are treated here. What those parents did in the 5 schools was say to the Board of Ed, you treated me with such a lack of respect. You didn't explain to me what was going on. You didn't tell me why I was on this list for privatization. You didn't explain to me why privatization is a good thing. Forget about Edison as a vendor. With the chancellor setting up a process that was doomed for failure from the beginning, because it was. You couldn't meet the standard of the election the way it was set up. And parents, it was never explained to them why we permitted the experiment to occur. Why did we make a list of 5 schools?
Well, why did you?
Because those 5 schools were failing. Because the board had done, and its staff had done tremendous efforts to try to get them to improve. One of the schools on the list, I'm not sure why it was on the list, because it was starting to move. But the balance of these schools were schools that everything had been attempted. Additional resources, close attention. They were part of the chancellor's district. So if they didn't work, what we were trying to do was offer those parents and those children a new opportunity. And it got rejected, not because, I don't think parents rejected privatization. I think they rejected the treatment they received. Now,
so what's the choice now?
The choice is that it becomes very difficult for the board to try to do another experiment with Edison or any other provider. And that really is, I blame that on the chancellor, because he handled this so poorly. He's created a terrible problem for us. But now he's responsible for those 5 schools.
Plus all the others.
Plus all the others. So what we've said to him as a board is, what are you going to do now with the 5 schools? You have told the world these schools don't work. What is it you're going to do different? And what I'm hoping will come out of that discussion is a commitment to try something like this privatization effort again. Because I honestly don't believe the board staff can develop a plan that will really help these schools.
Well, the standard that you point out was impossible to meet. I agree with you. The idea that you have to have 50% of the parents voting to approve it is totally unrealistic, because it becomes a political process.
Yeah.
One group campaigning against the other.
They were stuck in the middle of a war.
And the turnout is never in elections, even in elections for President of the United States, it's never 50%.
Well, what people should understand is that at the last mayoral election in the city, about 37% of the voters voted.
Right.
In this election for these parents, about 45% of the parents voted. And that's without counting those that knew they didn't have to show up. So actually,
so how do you get around that requirement?
You do it differently. You can. I contend that the board can, if it wishes, take some schools and contract with Edison without having to go through a charter process. That is an option for the board. Now, does it have the willingness, the political will to do it? That's a different question. But can it do it? Absolutely it can. It can offer a real opportunity to schools to have a partner, and it doesn't have to be Edison. There are other for-profit and non-profit groups that would be willing to work with us.
Well, there are 7 members in the board.
Yes.
Are the 7 members ready to work together and vote on this? Because I think any new idea would require unanimity on the part of the 7 members. If it's divided, then I think it'll be difficult for the parents to buy it.
It's absolutely true. And I'm not sure, with the experience that we had with Edison, if 7 people could come to an agreement on this. I think it's become one of our most difficult discussions. But one thing I can say about each of the members on the board is that each one of them as an individual is committed to improving the system. Sometimes we get there through a different road, but at the end of the road we have the same objective. During my tenure there, I will respect the fact that I represent them because I understand my role as a president, but at the same time I will try to urge them to move on the reform agenda as quickly and as forcefully as they can, because today there is a youngster sitting in class waiting to learn. She or he has a right to have that opportunity, and we have to improve the system today, and we should take advantage of everything that is out there to make it possible to improve our schools.
We have time for only one last idea. I was reading in the Times recently that in France and Italy, they have a preschool program for every child,
Yes.
starting in preschool at minimum at age 4 and in some cases at age 3. How do we stand up in New York City in that?
Not well. I mean, New York State has given us some funds for universal pre-K. We have started those programs, but the funding levels, they never assure us from one year to the other. And we also, and because of that, we have difficulty placing youngsters in parts of the city that are very overcrowded. So we have a tremendous challenge still to meet when it comes to universal pre-K. And they're absolutely right. The younger, the sooner, the better.
And especially with the new immigrants.
Absolutely. Or with any children who are at risk, whose background doesn't lend itself to having educational opportunities before they enter school.
Okay, well, I hope we can work it out. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you very much.
You can reach us by email at our website, www.cuny.tv, or write to us at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016.